Hello everyone, we are back. My name's Chris Polo. Welcome into the Polo Show. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel and make sure to turn on those notifications. That way you know when our newest episodes drop on whichever platform you use. We're back. It took me longer than expected. I had a great time in New York and was so ready to make a podcast episode when I got back to talk about free agency, the Charvarius Ward signing, and other things that happened with free agency where some guys went. And I got very sick all of a sudden, like right when I got back. So delayed me more than I thought. So apologize for the absence recently, but we are back. We're ready to get into it. Ready to dive into everything that's been going on. And listen, I could talk a little bit about today about the stuff the Niners have done, but I really don't want to just go summarizing everything that you guys probably already know happened. I want to talk about the stuff that is recent, that's been going on, that's very relevant right now pertaining to 49ers. We'll also definitely get some Warriors stuff in because we are right on the brink of the playoffs coming around, and we're going to talk about that. But first off, let's just dive right into the 49ers, okay? I'll try to do a quick recap here, okay? I know a lot of 49er fans, what I've seen with people I've talked to in the past few weeks. I know that people are upset. They want the Niners to go all out every year, and that's totally understandable. I get it. We see what the Rams do, and it's really easy to say the 49ers should do that. Now, I'm on board with the fact that you don't need to play conservative, but the Niners don't really play conservative. That's where I think the misconception is. By the way, y'all, I still don't have a mic stand, so if you hear the mic moving, I still have to hold it. I'm working on that too. But anyways, with the 49ers, they're pretty aggressive. They make it like one aggressive move. It's just that the Rams, they just build this roster through a completely different philosophy, and that's why people think that they're much more aggressive than the Niners, when in reality, the Niners, they make aggressive moves. They just, in my opinion, decide to build through the draft and are excellent at building through the draft. Signing Charvarius Ward to me was amazing because that helps solidify the secondary. He was one of the highest graded corners in man coverage last season, and his addition is just also going to allow the pass rush to succeed as well, right? And then you got guys like George Odom, Oren Burks, Ray McLeod. They just signed Marcus Johnson recently. You know, that helps address what was a horrible special teams unit, and also just getting another guy for, we'll see if Marcus Johnson makes the roster. So they're not very flashy signings that the fans like, but clearly when you look at the moves that the 49ers made, they're directly addressing their weaknesses. They clearly know what they are, and they wanted to solidify those spots, okay? When you have a bottom 10 special teams unit in terms of starting field position on offense and defense, that has to be addressed, and they knew that. So they want to attack free agency to improve that, and they did, and we'll just see how that plays out. I know they're not like big time signings. I know it's not Chandler Jones or J.C. Jackson or guys like Von Miller, but it still adds value. I'm not sure how people feel about Kerry Hyder coming back. I don't really have that much of an opinion on it. I'm not going to say it's not going to help them, but personally, I would have rather tried to go after Carlos Dunlap if that were the case, going after someone who was let go from Seattle. But listen, if Hyder can replicate the production that he gave the Niners in 2020, that should pay big time, considering he'd actually be able to play on the opposite side of Nick Bosa this time around. So I think that was an okay signing. And to me, the biggest question marks are at strong safety and the right side of the offensive line. It's pretty clear, I think, they do believe in Aaron Banks, and I expect him to move into his natural position at left guard to fill that void of Laken Tomlinson. And the right guard position, that's a question, along with Mike McGlinchey at right tackle, especially because it's just the quad injury, right? Like, I think Mike McGlinchey is better than people give him credit for in the running game, but that quad injury is a very serious thing that guys usually don't come back from 100%. So they're sitting here right now with 9 draft picks, and I'd rather them go to BPA, best player available, rather than just looking at need. Sometimes it can be both, but I think you just got to hope that you get the best talent available and see what you can do from there. I think you have to fill your holes in free agency, and they did fill some holes in free agency, like I just said. But that's also why I feel like I just want them to re-sign Tart. Like, just re-sign Jaquiski Tart. I get it. They have a lot of safeties in that room, and that would mean you're probably letting somebody else go, and you're going to draft a safety anyways. But to me, just in case, right? So that way you can still get a safety, right? You can still get a safety at some point in the draft to replace him after this next season. But I just feel like Jaquiski Tart's market value is so damn low that you can probably bring him back for chump change. And listen, if another team makes him an offer, it's not going to be a lot. Let's say you offer him less money. What other situation is going to be more attractive to Jaquiski Tart than to play in this defensive system he knows, with a good pass rush, with a good linebacking core, with a secondary that just added a brand new shiny corner, and playing alongside Jimmy Ward like he has for years, right? Why not? Like a prove-it one-year deal type thing. And then that way, you can maybe edge is best available at 61. And you can pick there, and you still have Jaquiski, and you can pick a safety in the 3rd or 4th round, whatever you want to do. I just think that's the route they need to take. I understand it's probably not going to happen. I know another question mark is the nickel corner spot, because K'Wan Williams is gone. A name being thrown around a lot is Marcus Jones in this year's draft. He has met with the Niners as well, so that may be a name to look out for. So listen, there's still things to address even after, the early parts of the offseason. We're only a few weeks out from when the new league year actually started. The reality is the Niners possibly have a top 3 roster in the NFC, so there's still no need to overreact to them not spending a ton of money in free agency, okay? I think they'll likely cut Jimmy Garoppolo when he's healthy, use the cap space available to bring in free agents at the time who are without a team, and also pay their draft picks. That's what I think they'll probably end up doing, because it looks like Jimmy Garoppolo is no value in the trade market. And listen, to anyone who's worried about free agency, the massive upgrade this season is Trey Lance, okay? It's shameful that Garoppolo's on the roster at this point, right? I hate talking about this guy, so I'm not even going to dive into it. It is inexcusable. They did overplay their hand. They miscalculated. But I don't even want to talk about this guy. Let's talk about him when we need to talk about him. We don't need to talk about him right now. This is the thing that we have to talk about. Like I said, I just want to get a quick little recap, but this is what has to be talked about. Deebo Samuel. All right. So basically things that have been going on recently with Deebo Samuel. We know that even though he's still under contract for 2022, he's not going to make a ton of money this year, but they do want to get that extension done now. They want to get it done sooner than later, it seems like, based on things we've heard. John Lynch said that he would be compensated for. He would be a Niner for a long time, along with Nick Bosa as well. We expect Nick Bosa to be next after Deebo. Whether they decide to do it pretty early this year or next offseason, whatever. Those are clearly 2 of the core guys that need to be taken care of. Now, Deebo Samuel seems upset because he wiped his social media of anything 49er related. Okay, so I feel like a lot of you probably know this, but I'll say it just in case there are people who haven't been following it this closely. I've been on Spaces a lot the last few days talking about this. Before I put this episode together, I wanted to think of everyone, or listen to everybody's points of view on the situation and the contract negotiation before I just put an episode out. I wanted to, see what the consensus was. And listen, it just feels like he's nervous during this process. Okay, he removed all his posts about the 49ers, which is about 80-ish posts, I believe, on Instagram. He removed his profile picture, which was an edit of him in a 49er jersey, and he also unfollowed the team. Now, I think it's just because this is possibly the only big contract he'll get in his career, and it's likely that the Niners lowballed him to a point where he feels disrespected and he's just getting nervous, right? Listen, when you get to a second contract in the NFL, that is a massive blessing. That's a huge accomplishment, and you want to cash out on that. Deebo Samuel is not one of these guys that's like 23, 24 years old. He's 26. So if he gets a 5-year contract or a 4-year contract, this next contract is going to take him into his 30s. This could be the only time he gets to cash out, and I'm pro player. Get your money and get out of the game. He's going to get paid what he wants. Every team is trying to find the new version of this guy. So he knows his worth. He knows all these things. His agent knows these things. Now, while what's happened with the social media stuff and, scrapping all those Instagram posts, while it doesn't dictate what the end result is going to be, we can't say it's nothing either at the same time, right? Like, we can't just say, oh, this is just everyday stuff, like this happens, whatever. No, like it means something. Even if it doesn't mean that he's not going to be a 49er, which honestly, if it is going this south, he may not be a 49er for that much longer. But the amount of energy it takes to go and remove 80-ish posts from your social media that are very specific in this fashion, it's not normal everyday behavior. Okay, like, listen, go to your social media, delete 80 posts pertaining to one particular subject, unfollow accounts pertaining to that same subject, and then come back and tell me if that felt like normal everyday behavior with no meaning behind it. It means something. To say it's meaningless, come on. It means something, right? I'm not gonna say it doesn't mean he's gonna be a 49er, but it matters, right? It gives you a good indication of what the situation is like now. Listen, we're not behind those doors. We don't know what's going on in the negotiations. We don't know how much money he's asking for. We don't know how much money the Niners are offering him, right? But the thing that was coming out that people are questioning the credibility of this, because I believe the person that reported this was a Dallas Cowboys beat writer, but supposedly Deebo Samuel's looking to become the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. And people have been debating this now ever since that came out. Does he deserve that? Is that his worth? And people are trying to compare this to like the Tyreek Hill contract, the Devontae Adams contract. Listen, whether he's going to get 22 a year, 24, 25, 30, I don't know. It's got to be about the guaranteed money, right? It has to be about the guaranteed money. I don't know where the difference is between both sides. I don't know how far off they are in these negotiations. It sounds like they're not very close, but it's also very early. Fred Warner and George Kittle, they got their extensions right around camp, so we can't sit here and say that it's done, like they've reached an impasse. We don't know. We're just kind of giving educated guesses at this point. Guarantees what matters, and he has had an injury history. And listen, there's some good points to this that I've listened to on Spaces a lot, and they're totally understandable. The Niners, from their perspective, they're going to say, well, you've had some injury history. They're going to say you did drop some passes this year. They're going to say, well, we used you a lot as a running back, but we don't want to do that. We're not going to run you downhill like that, because it's just not very sustainable throughout the course of a career. So therefore, how much are we really going to value all these rushing statistics? And from Deebo Samuel's camp and his point of view, he's going to say, well, I'm one of one. Everyone in the league is looking for the new version of me, right? Like, it's funny. Every time you see a wide receiver take like a jet sweep, teams and media are trying to say like, this is Deebo Samuel. Like, it's not that simple. Deebo Samuel in space. Like, I've never seen a wide receiver with that speed and that balance that can just truck through defensive tackles and linebackers. I've never seen a player run like that. And a lot of people are concerned that he's not going to have that long of a career with the style that he plays with, and therefore people don't want to guarantee him too much money. Now, here's my thing. I understand you can't give him a blank check. I understand he's not at the point where he can get whatever he wants. He's had one all-pro season. He had a very good rookie season. And 2020, he was injured pretty much the entire year, so there wasn't a lot of production there. So you're going off one good rookie season, a season where he's very injured, and one all-pro season. My thing is you still pay him. And if the difference isn't too crazy, there's no way that you can get really stingy with that negotiation and say, well, you know what? What about Bosa? What about this guy coming up? To me, you just have to figure that shit out. This is where you kind of have to get a little bit like the LA Rams. Listen, people are talking about what trade compensation they can get for Deebo Samuel, because it looks like, if he doesn't re-sign, do you really want to run the risk that he just leaves in the open market, or do you want to sell him high, like the stock market, right? Do you want to sell high, or do you want to just roll with it? Now, my thing is, you can't trade 5 carat diamonds for 5 1-carat diamonds. You can't trade a 5-carat diamond for multiple 2 and 3-carat diamonds. It's not the same. You can't trade Deebo Samuel for multiple picks and expect, oh, we're going to get production. We can go make up for that. You will not make up for it. You also can't assume that Brandon Ayuk, who I love and I think is going to have a phenomenal third season with Trey Lance at quarterback, you cannot assume that you can rely on Brandon Ayuk, because people are saying, well, hey, he's only had one good year. How do we know he's going to continue this good production? Well, if you're afraid to rely on production from someone who's already shown you what he can do, you cannot go into a season in the next few years relying on Brandon Ayuk to take the wide receiver 1 spot and produce when he's yet to show us fully what he's capable of. You can't expect these high expectations, because what Deebo Samuel just did is unheard of. Can Brandon Ayuk be a better receiver? He could. I think he's a better route runner. I think he can definitely be utilized as a vertical threat, maybe more than they would ever use Deebo Samuel as a vertical threat. Just they're different types of receivers. But that doesn't mean Deebo Samuel's not going to continue producing. It doesn't mean Brandon Ayuk is someone that can make up for that. Right? There's been lots of things that have been going around that I cannot come to agree with. And listen, just because Jimmy is going to be gone, or at least he won't be starting, I'll put it that way, considering how that situation's going right now, that doesn't mean his production's going to decrease. I keep seeing that. Listen, Jimmy Garoppolo force-fed Deebo Samuel, and he was only putting up these numbers because he was getting an open space and running these short routes, like slant routes and these hitch routes and curls and screens. Listen, Trey Lance should be able to make more throws, right? I think we can all agree with that. Meaning Deebo Samuel can be deployed all over the field as a wide receiver. In fact, I would argue, and then people might come at me for this, but hear me out. Okay, I would argue that Deebo Samuel's production as a receiver was limited in 2021 due to the fact that they had a limited quarterback who couldn't make all the throws. If you have a quarterback who can't make all the throws, then your wide receiver is not going to be able to make all the plays within your offense that he can make. We don't know that Deebo Samuel's not a vertical threat. We don't know that Deebo Samuel can't be utilized down the field more. Listen, Trey Lance went in for a very small sample size. Very, very small sample size. Who did he throw that long touchdown pass to against Houston? That was Deebo Samuel. I know, I get it. It's one play. We can't judge it off that completely. But my point there is, do you see Jimmy Garoppolo taking shots like that to Deebo Samuel? Do you even see Deebo Samuel consistently running that far down the field with his routes when Jimmy Garoppolo's in at quarterback? I don't see it. That's when I see the screens. That's when I see the slants and the hitches. And that's when they're handing the ball off, because they needed to move the ball, and Deebo Samuel gave them the best chance, because they had a quarterback that just cannot see Brandon Ayuk when he's open, or if he does see him when he's open, can't make the throw. So what do? You need to put the ball in the hands of your best players. And the easiest way for Jimmy Garoppolo to get Deebo Samuel the ball is these screen passes and these short plays. You cater really the whole offense to who you have at quarterback. If you are putting your quarterback in a situation where he's not going to succeed, it doesn't matter what you have out there. And Jimmy Garoppolo was so limited that in order to give him the best chance to succeed, you had to make things as easy and short as possible. You're not going to have him throwing down the field. You're not going to want him throwing outside the numbers. You're going to want to try to work the middle of the field, give him short plays to execute. Simple. Just keep moving the chains, right? This is why they were winning in spite of Jimmy G. Everyone in the league is looking for the next Deebo Samuel. You can't just let him walk. I believe that with Trey Lance in at quarterback, because people keep saying, oh, well, he has a better connection and better chemistry with Brandon Ayuk. And I'm not denying that. He absolutely... Listen, Emmanuel Sanders went on Good Morning Football and said that, in the response of why does Jimmy G get criticized so much, and he was saying that Jimmy G's a good leader and all this BS, but it's because he can't go on national television and just trash his teammate. But no one ever brings up anything skill related. You know who has not been shy, just with actions, if you pay attention, in terms of letting basically everyone know that he can't stand Jimmy G. It's Brandon Ayuk flailing his arms up in the air, jumping up and down when he's wide open. He was the guy who, not literally, but was basically pounding the table for Trey Lance. He wanted Trey Lance to play. He didn't believe in Jimmy, and that's why he was in Shanahan's doghouse. That's why he barely played, because he knows Trey Lance is capable of making those throws down the field, making those throws outside the numbers. He will see him when he's open. Trey Lance has been learning X's and O's since he was a child from his father. He has consistently been a quarterback, or whatever you want to say about him, how raw he was in college. Like, listen, this dude makes good football decisions. You can see when he's in the games the difference in Brandon Ayuk's production versus when he's playing with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? But that does not mean it's just going to take away from Deebo Samuel as a receiver. My argument there is just because Trey Lance is going to see open receivers and actually be capable of throwing them the football, to me, it just means the whole offense will operate more. They will put up more points. They can have more explosive plays. They can get more first downs. Meaning Deebo Samuel's still going to have opportunities. I think you can utilize the whole field and you can actually see what Deebo Samuel's fully capable of. Right? You can't do that with Jimmy Garoppolo because he's not going to make those throws. You can see it with Brandon Ayuk. He's not making those throws to Brandon Ayuk, so why would you have Deebo Samuel running those routes? It wouldn't make sense to do that. So with Trey Lance at quarterback, listen, if you put a good receiver with a better quarterback, how does that make them worse? How does that make them worse? Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers versus Derek Carr. I'm not saying Devontae Adams can't put up big numbers, but you're going to tell me that Devontae Adams would rather have Derek Carr than Aaron Rodgers? It was just a money thing that wasn't going to work out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just say, like, Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy that they won in spite of, right? So why are we going to pin Deebo Samuel's success to Jimmy Garoppolo? That doesn't make any sense. Jimmy Garoppolo only had decent statistics yardage-wise because of Deebo Samuel. That's how I would put it. And you're going to tell me that Trey Lance, after a year of sitting and camp and working on his mechanics, now this offseason and then training camp this next year and preseason, you're going to tell me he can't execute those screen passes and those slant routes and those short plays, and on top of that be able to hit Deebo Samuel down the field? That's why, to me, I'm not with the whole, he's going to decline, he's not going to produce as much, because no one knows that. No one knows that. I would argue that with a better quarterback, which is going to allow Kyle Shanahan to open up the rest of his playbook, by the way, I would argue it's going to allow you to see Deebo Samuel utilized to his fullest potential. I feel like he just was not going to be able to be deployed to his fullest potential as a wide receiver. I don't want to use him as much as a running back this year, and I doubt they will. But as a receiver, this dude was 5th in the NFL in receiving yards. And he was running the ball a good amount. And he had a terrible quarterback. If Deebo Samuel had a good quarterback and was not running the ball as much and was able to be in an offense where the quarterback can make the throws anywhere around the field, if he was on a team where the quarterback could also extend plays with his legs, if he was on a team where the playbook, the play calling isn't going to be so limited because a quarterback can't throw the ball efficiently outside the numbers, why can't he be like a 15, 16, even up to an 1,800-yard receiver, especially with the way that he can run with the ball in space? Kyle Shanahan, who's a mastermind at scheming guys open, you think that having Trey Lance in there instead of Jimmy Garoppolo is going to hurt Deebo Samuel? I don't agree with that. I understand the point because I get it in terms of the plays that Deebo Samuel was asked to execute, but in reality, Deebo Samuel was asked by Kyle Shanahan to perform one way, to produce in a certain way, and he did that at the highest level. Yes, the offense should look a little different, at least in the passing game next year, right? So Deebo Samuel's going to be asked to do something probably a little differently from Kyle Shanahan, and I firmly believe that he will be able to do that same thing at whatever it is. And my guess is just being more of a wide receiver, because now you have a quarterback who is not as limited at least from what I've seen and what I believe Trey Lance is going to be. I don't think Trey Lance, who is mobile, who has a cannon for an arm, who has shown us he can throw the ball outside the numbers, who has shown us he can see the open guy, who has shown us he can see the deep pass instead of just taking the check down and make that throw over the middle of the field 15, 20, 25 yards. I don't think a guy like that's going to hurt Deebo Samuel. So I'm paying him. I'm paying him. The whole point of trying to win with a quarterback on his rookie deal is you can spread talent all around him. So by not paying Deebo Samuel to keep him around, think about this. You're going to give Trey Lance a worse situation on a rookie deal when you bent over backwards to give Jimmy Garoppolo the best situation possible. To me, I was trying to think of a parallel, right? Some people are trying to say like, oh, this kind of reminds them of Terrell Owens when they weren't able to bring him back. But I'm trying to think of like a trade. I'm trying to think of a player who is still had a lot of time in this league. I'm trying to think of a player who is coming off a good season on a team that is so close to winning a championship, and it's their time to get paid. So I was really trying to think of this, and I couldn't even think of just football. I had to think of all sports in general. Because in my opinion, when you trade a star player away, you're always the loser. Look at the Seahawks. Are we saying they're the winner? They got a hell of a haul for Russell Wilson, right? The Seahawks are going to be in shambles. So the parallel that I thought of that was closest to this situation, and if you have a better one, go ahead and let me know. I think this feels very similar, and this has to go out of football. I think this feels very similar to James Harden. Go back in time, the Thunder would probably pay him, right? So with James Harden, the Thunder were a great team. They had Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and they were young, and James Harden was the sixth man, and they didn't want to pay him. If I remember correctly, the difference that we were talking about with James Harden was not wanting to give him like an extra $4 million or something like that. Something like that. And with James Harden, they traded him away to Houston. They didn't get nearly anything close to James Harden's level of production in return. He goes on, and what does he do? He becomes one of the most, even though I'm not a fan of the way he plays, he became one of the most efficient scorers in basketball history. The way he gets to the line. He has won scoring titles. He won an MVP. He was an MVP candidate for multiple seasons. This dude was putting up a ton of triple-doubles, 50-point triple-doubles. If you go back in time, you think the Thunder aren't going to pay him that extra however million? You think they weren't just going to find a way to figure it out if they can go back in time? Don't be that team that is sitting back, or sitting and looking back on the past and saying, damn, if we just gave him that we could have figured it out along the way and made it work. You don't want to do that. And here's the thing. If the difference is around like $5 to $8 million or something in guaranteed money that they're not agreeing on, something like that, right? To me, you move things around to just make that work, right? Listen, I don't have all the answers of how you can make that work and still keep Nick Bosa. I personally don't. I would be lying if I told you that. It's their job in the front office to figure these things out. That's the point. Would Les Snead not be able to find a way to figure this thing out if the Rams were in this situation? I'm not sold that they would just fold and not be able to figure this out. Now, it's very early, so I'm not saying that the Niners won't figure this out. But to me, when people are saying they wouldn't pay him top money, I think that's ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous considering the salary cap goes up all the time. Listen, if you sit on this 2022 season, assuming he doesn't hold out, which is a possibility, let's say he plays. Let's say he plays and his production does dip. Let's say you enter the negotiations, but now he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. And you try to come at him with, hey, well, you had a fall off, so we're not going to give you the top money you were asking for last year. We're going to give you this instead, and you offer him less. Cool, whatever. Do you think that seriously changes the fact that another team is going to want to throw the bag at him? It's not going to change anything. Other teams will, especially the bad teams, they will overpay for talent because they're desperate. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Trent Baalke just threw the bag at Christian Kirk. I know the contract itself, when you look at the details, it's not as dramatic as we think it was, but still, bad teams will overpay. And when you have a guy who everyone in the league is trying to replicate, and that guy becomes available, he's going to get his bag. And you will risk losing him to free agency. And you know what? At this point, you could set the market if that's what he wants. And I don't think that's the worst thing in the world as much as some people do, because as the salary cap keeps increasing, this is a regular occurrence. Okay, when Jimmy Garoppolo was extended, which it was a mistake, they should have probably franchise tagged him, but when he was extended, with that contract, he was the highest paid quarterback of all time. Not even close to being the highest paid quarterback right now. Not even close. It changes. The market, the contracts will keep inflating. Okay? I remember Christian McCaffrey became the highest paid running back of all time, I believe. And then right after that, it was Dalvin Cook, and he got paid more than that. This keeps happening. It's a cycle. The salary cap is going to keep increasing. It's supposed to take a very big jump very soon. The salary that we think might be too much, or the guaranteed money that we think might be too much right now, may not be even top end 2 or 3 years from now. That's my point. Because the market is always going to change. You look at gas prices, right? The gas prices are really insane right now, right? But you still got to go pay it, and you pay it anyways because you need it. Because everyone else, the market is telling you that's how much gas costs, and you got to go pay for it. So that's my thing. I would rather pay him earlier, or else I honestly don't see him getting a long-term deal. I think next year he ends up getting franchise tagged. Maybe he gets franchise tagged the second year, and then at that point he's probably gone. So if I want Deebo Samuel long-term, if the 49ers want him, they said he would be a Niner for a long time. They said that he would get compensated for it. If they were serious, get it done. Don't fuck this up is basically all I'm saying. It's still early, but do not mess this up, because clearly he's pissed off. I don't know why, but clearly he's pissed off. So it really makes you wonder how much the 49ers offered, right? And listen, if you entered the offseason with the mission of trading Jimmy Garoppolo, and you managed to end up trading Deebo Samuel somehow and holding on to Garoppolo instead, somebody has to be on the hot seat. I'm just keeping it real. I'm not saying Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch specifically. I'm just saying somebody has to be on the hot seat. Even if the situations don't interfere. I know the contracts don't interfere with each other, so technically they're not correlated situations. The point is somebody is making wild miscalculations in that front office that you cannot afford to keep making when it's Nick Bosa's turn to get compensated. You miscalculated the Jimmy Garoppolo situation horribly. And now you're stuck with a quarterback on your roster right now who's not supposed to start, making $25 million. That's where you are. That's just a reality. You miscalculated. John Lynch said they didn't get any offers. Did you just not get any offers because people didn't want him? Or did you not get an official offer because when teams called you, you were asking for way too much and teams weren't buying it? Because guess what? National media, it's pretty obvious. They don't really watch 49er football. I'm so convinced more than ever this past year that they just don't really pay attention to West Coast teams unless it's like a hot location like Los Angeles, right? So if you have national media always talking about, does Jimmy Garoppolo get criticized so much, that it seems like they can't understand it. You know a really easy way to understand it? Watch the fucking tape. And it's very easy to see. And then they have these players that played with them in the past or current, and you have them go up there, and what are they supposed to say? Trash him? Tell you what the criticism's about? No, they're going to tell you he's a good leader, he's a great guy, and because of that, people in national media, they're feeding this to everybody, and everyone thinks, oh, yeah, he does get criticized too much. No, he does not get criticized too much. Watch tape. You don't think NFL scouts and GMs and organizations know the truth? You think they're buying into that bullshit that national media is inadvertently spreading about Jimmy Garoppolo and why it's justified to, put up these horrible numbers and can continue to be praised? They're not buying that shit. These are professional organizations. They're going to watch the tape. They understand. They understand that teams load the box against you to dare your quarterback. Go back and watch what happened in the post-game interview after the Super Bowl against Kansas City, look at what they're saying about Jimmy Garoppolo. Look at what the Rams did in the NFC title game this year, loading the box. There's a reason. There's a reason safeties play so high up against Jimmy Garoppolo. They know. And the fact that you couldn't get a trade done, more tells me, with all the quarterback movement, more tells me you were asking for too much consistently. Because when I'm hearing that you never got an offer, that to me, someone's miscalculating, and I don't think another team is going to miscalculate Jimmy Garoppolo's worth. I think every team pretty accurately calculated Jimmy Garoppolo's worth. So for you to not get an offer and you had this whole year planning out to play him and build his trade value, you miscalculated everything. Don't miscalculate the Deebo Samuel situation, because you came out and said he would be compensated. He would be a Niner for a long time. Same thing with Nick Bosa. If this gets fucked up by somebody, whoever it is, they have to be on the hot seat. This is a generational talent. Listen, the hardest part of finding talent like this is hitting in the draft. That's the hardest part. The second step is get them signed on that second contract. That is the easier step. Do not revert back to step one. Don't do that. And the thing is, people are complaining about wanting to pay Deebo Samuel. This is a very good fucking predicament to be in. I guarantee you most teams would love to be in this scenario of, oh my gosh, do we have to pay this guy to be one of the highest paid players in the NFL? It's a great situation to be in. Oh no, our biggest problem is we're paying someone who's the highest paid in the league. Well, there's a reason he's getting that money. The best players in the NFL get paid like it. And if you don't want to pay them like it, you will not have some of the best players in the NFL. It doesn't mean you can't win, doesn't mean you can't assemble rosters, but when you have a guy who's one of one, you pay him. Put some outs in the contract. Find some ways so you can get out of it just in case. I'm not saying like you just fully commit, write him a blank check, but when I'm hearing people say you should trade him, like when I've spoken to people that are associated with other teams, whether they cover other teams or if they're fans of other teams, even like the Chiefs, every single one of them say, shit, we'll take Deebo Samuel. We'll send you this first round pick and this first round pick or all these picks, and then we'll still pay him. There's a reason for that. The Niners have something that the rest of the NFL is in envy of. Do not mess this up. I've been patient with the 49ers front office this offseason, but if this gets messed up, there is no apologizing. There's no excuse to mess this up. This would be bad, to put it lightly. So it's something to definitely monitor. It's something interesting. It's not the end-all be-all that he deleted all those Instagram posts or archived, whatever. It doesn't matter. It means something, and it gives us a good indication of what's going on right now. And the reason that we're all going to freak out about it is because the Niners don't leak anything. They don't let out any information. If information, like rumors about who they're going to go after in the draft or something gets out, it almost feels like they purposely put it out there as a smokescreen, like the Mac Jones thing. We don't ever actually know what they're doing. We don't know who they're looking at. So that's what makes it nerve-wracking, because we know we're not going to hear a legitimate update about this from the 49ers. We're not going to hear something from Matt Mayoko or anyone that covers the team, because they just don't let this kind of shit out. This is John Lynch's thing. When he was getting hired, it came out of nowhere. And he said that was one of the tests. He wanted to make sure that stuff wouldn't get out. This was important to John Lynch. They're not going to let us hear anything. That's why I also don't know how much to believe in Deebo Samuel wanting to become the highest paid non-quarterback. I think he'll get around the $25 million range, and that is fair. The guaranteed money, around $70 million, I think that's fair. That's the question. We don't know how much he's asking for, so we'll see. Something will develop, but here's the thing. Someone brought up a good point this morning. Jesse Naylor brought this point up. He's a great podcaster. You guys should check him out. Did an interview with Trey Lance's quarterback coach the other day, and he brought up the point that if something were to go down, like let's say a trade, it's got to happen before the draft, right? You got to kind of have that figured out before the draft so you can get that compensation right now. So if something were to happen, it will happen probably before then, If nothing happens after the draft, then there will probably be a deal that gets done, or he'll play out through 2022. So we're just going to have to monitor it. But let's move on to the Warriors, okay? And by the way, I was thinking of maybe even spending more time on 49ers stuff and Warriors stuff separately, and just like making two different types of episodes, like Warriors episodes, Niner episodes. So we'll figure that out. But either way, let's dive into the Warriors, okay? We are on the brink of the playoffs. They have clinched a playoff spot, so it's their first time being back since the 2019 season. And how confident am I in their title chances? Well, I'm actually very, very confident. I'm very confident, but I understand I have the respectable fear. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to run all over everybody, but I have the respectable fear of the opponents, which is something Greg Popovich has always praised. Now, they're going to end up with the 3rd or the 4th seed in the playoffs, okay? Does the 1 seed matter? No. No, it doesn't really matter what seed you have when the Warriors. I think they kind of learned that lesson. To me, it was just when you're in a position to have the 1 seed, you might as well just try and go for it. But after all the injuries, like, it really doesn't matter. If they were like the 5th seed, I wouldn't really care right now. I still believe that it is the Warriors and the Suns. The fact is, as hard as I've been on the Warriors on this podcast, especially since I started getting it going, that was mostly frustration with the way that they fold when Draymond Green is out. The only reason the season took this negative turn was because Draymond Green was out, right? He missed a huge portion of the season, so they dropped from being a top team in the league to a middle-of-the-pack seed. And that doesn't really matter all that much right now. If they're all healthy, the other teams in the West are in huge trouble. I can't remember how many minutes they played together, but it's not a lot. It's really not a lot. It's like embarrassing. Like, holy shit, how have they only played this much together? When they're healthy, they're going to be so deadly. They're going to, the fact that you are a 50-plus win team and one person of your big three has always been injured, right? And you're a 50-plus win team. And then you look at a team like the Lakers and how they talk about their injuries. This is incredible. What an incredible accomplishment. You look at Jordan Poole and his growth. It's a crime. That's why I said I don't think national media watches or pays attention to West Coast sports. It's a crime that Jordan Poole is not going to be most improved player of the year. This dude in the last few years has been like basically a G leaguer and then a role player, and now he looks like an all-star. With Steph Curry out, you look at the numbers he's put up, the streak of 20-point games, the 30-point games he's put up. He had 11 assists in the last game as well. He had a double-double. Like, this dude is playing like an all-star, and I hope they pay the shit out of him. Pay him. I'll move on from Andrew Wiggins if I have to, and let Kuminga continue to develop and get an expanded role in this team. I'm keeping Jordan Poole. Beginning of the year, if you asked me, I probably would have said no, because I would have said I don't want a third guard to be making a ton of money. But at this point, hell no. This dude is the now, and he's also the future for when Steph Curry starts to get up there in age. Pay Jordan Poole, man. But listen, 10 of their losses, I believe, were without Steph Curry. So, like, when we start to look at the seeding here, it's going to lie to a lot of people, and I think people are going to be really surprised with this Warriors team when they get into the playoffs. This is one of those cases where they're going to be much better than their record says. It's just been a story of injuries, right? When you look at the way Jordan Poole's playing, like I said, he turned into a star, and now you put Steph Curry on the court with them, with Jordan Poole and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson. I think the death lineup is going to be those four with Andrew Wiggins. Like, that's really, really a headache to defend. If Jordan Poole's playing like this, if he continues this, it's going to be a headache to defend. Klay Thompson just had 33 the other night. I think he's averaging like 28 in his last 5 games. Dude, if you get Steph Curry and those two on, and Draymond is doing what he does, that's going to be really hard to stop. I don't care if you're the Suns or Memphis. And listen, here's the thing. When it comes to Memphis, I'm not too worried about them in a 7-game series. You know, can they punk the Warriors on a Tuesday night in the middle of the season? Sure. But when you're in the playoffs, right, you're in a series going up against, you know, you're going into the task of you're having to beat the Warriors 4 times in a span of 7 games, right? Good luck doing that, because you're going to need Steph, Klay, and Poole to consistently have off nights probably like 4 different times in order for that to happen. So on top of that, the Grizzlies, I was about to say the Grizzlies, who are also just not very experienced in the playoffs at all, they're going to have to be consistently better than a team with championship pedigree and DNA and superstar power and elite shooting ability, right? They might drop a couple games if they play Memphis, but I think honestly that's about it. If they're healthy, that is. Now, here's the thing. They do have a mental edge over them. They are still a very good team. And like I said, I'm going to have a respectable fear. And honestly, I fear more Memphis. I fear them more than I do Phoenix, which is why I think, and I know this is going to sound really shitty, and listen, my mentality in terms of, sorry, I'm moving my microphone, but my mentality with what I'm about to say is, listen, if you're worried about who you're facing in the playoffs, you're probably not a championship team. You can't be focused on that. However, that being said, matchups matter. And this team is not going to have a lot of chemistry going into the playoffs in terms of this season. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green have yet to start a game together. You're going to have to get it all figured out in the first round when Steph Curry comes back from that injury. I would not want to play a Memphis team that feels like they have the mental edge over us early in the playoffs. Therefore, I would much rather make sure, and I'll rest guys. I'll rest Draymond. I'll rest Klay. I'd rather have the 4 seed than the 3rd seed. I'm honest. Like, I would rather lose the games coming up to finish out the regular season and take the 4 seed. Listen, if you're the 3 seed, here's the difference. Okay, and this is a big difference. If you're the 3rd seed, you're going to play the Denver Nuggets. You're going to play Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. By the way, Jamal Murray, I remember there was a possibility of him coming back from the playoffs. I haven't paid attention too much if that's still really a thing. But Jokic might win back-to-back MVP this year. You're going to play him in the first round if you're a 3rd seed. And not only that, if you win that series, you're playing Memphis probably, assuming they win, take care of business in the first round, which they probably will. You're going to be playing Memphis in the second round, and then you'll probably have to meet Phoenix in the conference finals. To me, if I'm the 4 seed, I like that better because who do you play in the first round? The Utah Jazz. You see what they did to them the other night in the 4th quarter without Steph Curry? You see what they do to them almost all the time? I'm taking a matchup against the Jazz in the first round. And on top of that, you get the Phoenix Suns in the second round. I know they're the top team in the league, but I think they match up far better against Phoenix than they do Memphis. And in that case, you wouldn't have to see Memphis until the conference finals, assuming they made it that far. I love your chances as a 4 seed a lot more than as a 3 seed. Not saying that the Warriors can't get it done, but it is a path of more resistance if you're the 3rd seed. Okay, and I also say that about Phoenix in terms of being a better matchup because they're, first of all, okay, Phoenix to me, they're a better team than Memphis, right? My issue with Phoenix is I've seen them play the Warriors up close this year. The first win against them, right? It took one of the worst shooting nights of Steph Curry's career. I was in the building. It was awful. Okay, it actually, until a few, like some other horrible nights Steph Curry had after that, at the time, it actually literally was Steph Curry's worst shooting performance of his career. Okay? The other win that the Suns got was pretty recently. Steph Curry wasn't playing. So, and it came down to one possession, by the way. It's not like they blew them out. It was a one-possession game at Chase Center. Steph Curry was not playing. A missed Jordan Poole free throw really changed the situation at the end of the game for them. The Warriors had like 21 turnovers. Klay Thompson had a horrible shooting night, and you beat them by one possession. Put Steph Curry on the floor. I don't think Klay Thompson, you're going to count on him to have 4 different off shooting nights like that. And the Warriors committing 21 turnovers on a consistent basis? I don't think so. I vividly remember on Christmas Day when I was there in the Footprint Center in Phoenix, when the Warriors jumped the Suns. Without Wiggins, without Jordan Poole, without Damian Lee, without Klay Thompson, of course, and without Andre Iguodala. They had Quindary Witherspoon getting minutes in that game. So a 7-game series, I'm not very confident that the Suns would be able to close out a healthy Warriors squad. Okay, this is a core that won a championship and had a historic season before Kevin Durant became a factor. This is a core of players that had to prepare to face LeBron James led teams in the finals for 4 straight seasons. That kind of experience matters. They have a different level of understanding when it comes to playoff basketball, what it takes, the mentality you need to have, the level of focus, the level of effort. They understand these things more than the Suns do. All the Suns have is they got oh so close to winning a championship. You got bounced in 6 games by the Milwaukee Bucks. That's all they have. Getting there and winning it multiple times, there's a huge difference in your mental approach. The best the Suns have, like I said, is just hanging their hat and losing the NBA Finals. The best the Grizzlies have is beating Steph Curry and a bunch of G Leaguers in the play-in. So I like the Warriors' chances in being able to get healthy and rally together through the West. Okay, let's not forget how great this team was the season before Klay Thompson even returned, right? With just Steph Curry, Draymond, Jordan Poole was starting in that spot, and what Wiggins was able to do this year, and the role players. Now add Klay Thompson into that mix with Steph Curry healthy, with Draymond Green healthy. We haven't been able to do that this year. And for people getting on Klay Thompson's case this year, it's been ridiculous. I've talked with many people who keep trying to say the guy's washed, and every time he has an off night, and I just find it hilarious, right? You got fans telling the second greatest shooter of all time to shoot less, and somehow that benefits the Warriors. And then you see what he did against Utah in the fourth quarter. You see what he did against the Lakers just last night. Crickets from that part of the fan base. They don't hear anything. Don't hear anything. The fact that people the fact that they can compete the way they have with playoff teams at this point in the West, with Steph Curry not on the floor. Like, you look at the Utah game, right? You look at the Phoenix game. That's been one of the most encouraging parts of the season, in my opinion. As great as Jordan Poole's been, he doesn't even attract the same gravity that Steph Curry's going to from opposing defenses. His presence is going to open it up even more for Klay Thompson when we get to the playoffs. He's mostly back, in my opinion, in terms of the way he's returned from that injury, or those 2 injuries, I should say. And when you see Klay going out there dropping 30-point games, playing 38 minutes, I'm just really confident in the state of the team going into the playoffs. It's just a matter of health, right? That, and they got to shape up on defense because they give up way too many corner threes. It's ridiculous, right? Those are shots Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, Cameron Johnson. They'll feast off of those shots, right? So they got to shape that part up. Usually those 3-pointers and points in the paint get locked up in the playoffs because teams bring extra intensity to make things more difficult on offense than the regular season, and you're allowed to get away with more fouls, so you can play more physical. You can get up in Steph Curry's grill, make him more uncomfortable. Same for Klay Thompson. You're trying to make him put the ball on the ground, right? But still, you just got to shape that. You got to shape that stuff up. I know I expect it to improve, but it's coming from – they allow a lot of corner threes. Like, it's not very good. They've just done such a great job defending Devin Booker as well, though, in their matchups with him, especially with Gary Payton guarding him. So don't bail out the Suns by making it easier for the role players, because I promise you, Chris Paul is going to find a way. He's going to find a way to get them the ball when they're wide open. Now, the other thing about the Suns, from watching them very closely this year, and listen, I have season tickets to the Suns, y'all. So when I moved out to Arizona, I had like an email from a Suns season ticket representative, and I was just curious what the prices were, and I was surprised, wow, this stuff is cheaper than Oracle Arena, and they're really good. They just made it to the finals. So I was like, this gives me something to do out here. I don't know a lot of people out here at all. I don't know things to do out here. This gives me an activity. So got season tickets, and I've watched them a lot this year because of that. Obviously, they're on the local broadcast since I moved out to Arizona, so I watched them a lot. And the thing that I don't like about the Suns, although they're a great sound team, I don't think they shoot the 3-ball enough. I think that hurts them. I think they have way too much talent, way too much shooting ability to not be shooting the 3-ball as much as they should. They're I don't know where they rank exactly, and I should have looked this up before I started this, but I know they are in the bottom half of the whole NBA in terms of 3-point attempts per game. They don't take a lot of threes. And you look at teams like the Rockets, right? From a few years ago when the Warriors were making those runs. The Rockets shot a ton of threes and therefore were able to keep up with the Warriors. They were able to keep up with the Warriors team that had Kevin Durant. And the Suns, if you're going to play a team with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole and other guys that can hit the three ball off the bench, like an Otto Porter Jr. or sometimes a Damian Lee when he's on, you're going to have some trouble trying to keep up with them when they're on. If they're off, sure, but you're scoring at a slower pace anyways because, listen, okay, maybe not necessarily at a slower pace, but listen, you can shoot a worse percentage, but if you're taking more threes, the threes you do make are going to make up for some of the missed shots because 3 is always greater than 2. The analytics say this. This is not a secret. We've known this, okay? I think I've seen them a lot of times get outshot by teams like when they're playing the Pelicans or if they're playing, some like bottom feed teams or middle level teams like that you can get away with and put up wins because you're really efficient in the fourth quarter and you're a very deep roster and you can pull out these clutch wins, right? But how are you going to get away with that in a 7-game series against the Golden State Warriors? If you're getting outshot, I'm just being real, you're probably going to lose. I think both those series between Memphis and Phoenix, assuming they are to face them, I think they'll both go 6, maybe 7 for the Suns. But I just can't see a scenario where a healthy Warriors team, from what I've seen against the Suns this year, like the sample size we do have, let's say we haven't had a healthy Warriors squad play the Suns, right? We haven't had it. So to see the wins, the win on Christmas Day without Andrew Wiggins' points, without Jordan Poole's points, without Klay Thompson's points, to see the way that they were so close to putting them away the other night without Steph Curry, I think Suns fans are going to have a very rude awakening. I think that in my time here in Arizona, they're very high on the team and they really do believe they're going to run all over everybody in the Western Conference, and I don't think that's going to happen. I do think the Warriors are seriously going to give them a huge reality check. Like, look, y'all formed a great team, a great sound team. Here's the problem. You guys still don't have that superstar power that the Warriors have. I think they're going to make them realize that. That's another reason, going back to the Deebo Samuel thing. You can have a great team. You can have a great roster. But there's a difference between Devin Booker and Steph Curry, the same way there's a difference between Deebo Samuel and even someone else like an A.J. Brown if you were to find a way to get him, right? That's why I'm not a believer in trying to compare 5-carat diamonds to 3 and 2-carat diamonds. I'm not a believer in trying to compare that. That's why superstar power matters. That's why when you're one of the best in the league, you get paid for your sport that you play. So I'm very confident in the Warriors' chances. I'm very confident because I've seen them. I think a lot of it is not just Jordan Poole's ability to step up. I think a lot of it is Klay Thompson looks good. Klay Thompson looks really good. And you know what? He's not getting enough credit on defense. People want to say he's washed on defense. It's the same thing that people are talking about with his shooting. Just because he has a bad night doing this in this one area, it doesn't mean he's washed. People want to say that because of the injuries. So anytime he has a bad night at something, people want to say he's washed. Klay Thompson's defensive rating is very similar to Andrew Wiggins this season. I know it's a smaller sample size, but it's very similar to Andrew Wiggins this season. And Andrew Wiggins' defense is one of the heavy reasons he's made the All-Star team. He's been a great two-way player. He's been great defensively this season. That's why people call him two-way Wiggs. It's been similar, their defensive rating. That's all I'm going to say. It's been similar. I'm not saying that is like, the Bible for saying how good someone is at defense, but that is telling. That is telling. And just using my eyeballs, like I can see Klay Thompson, yes, he's not the same defender he was in like 2019, 2018, but he's there. I do think he needs another year to really get that conditioning back, but he's Klay, man. He's Klay. His play style on offense, he is picking up style-wise exactly where he was from 2019, which is a good thing. That's why people trying to say he needs to chill out doesn't make sense. It's a good thing that he's playing the same way because it means his injury did not affect him the way that we would expect most Achilles injuries to affect an athlete. He's playing the same way. He's playing with confidence, which means he trusts his body. A lot of times it's a psychological thing. Like if someone rolls an ankle or they sprain their knee, a lot of times they don't come back and are able to just mentally trust their body. He trusts himself. He trusts his body. He trusts his shot. That's a very good thing. That's a very good thing to have going into the playoffs. I think he really is back. He's back. He was just trying to figure out this whole time with the minutes restriction and not playing ball in a while and not having played a lot of these guys really that have entered the league the past couple of years. I think he's just trying to figure a lot of things out, get his place back in this league and make his, put his handprint on this thing. And I think you're seeing that happen now as he's getting into the high 30s when it comes to minutes. I think he's looking like normal Clay again, and it's really exciting to see. So I love the Warriors' chances to win a title this year. It's a matter of who they play in the East, right? I don't think the Heat are going to make it. I think the Bucks would be a tough matchup just because of Giannis, but I think they can pull that off. If Phoenix was close last year, I think a healthy Warriors squad this year can pull off a series against Milwaukee. Brooklyn, we'll see if they even make it. They're going to have to be in the play-in tournament, so we'll see what happens there. The Sixers, I don't believe in a James Harden-led team with Joel Embiid to make it. So the East, to me, is really wide open. I have no damn clue who's going to get out. I think the West is down to 2 teams and a dark horse Memphis Grizzly team coming in 3rd place. I think that's what it comes down to. Whereas the East, I have no damn clue. Honestly, if healthy, my pick would be the Brooklyn Nets, especially since Kyrie Irving's allowed to play at home now. But Ben Simmons hasn't played, and he's not going to play in the play-in. I just think Kevin Durant's that type of guy who can elevate his team into the finals in a pretty wide open East, in my opinion. I don't think the Celtics make it. So it'll be really interesting to see. Their biggest obstacle is going to be in the West. I think we can agree there. The best teams the Warriors will have to play are in the West, which is a good sign. So I like the Warriors' chances because I like the way they match up against the Suns, and I like the dramatic difference in terms of their experience. You're not going to have to go through a LeBron James-led team this season because they're just awful and they're done. There's no Kawhi Leonard. This is the time. This is the time you go for a push, get that extra ring, and rebuild officially the era of strength and numbers. I think they have a very, very good shot. Let's just see how the first round goes, and in my opinion, like I said, I'd rather be the 4 seed, rest up Draymond, rest up Clay, go play the Utah Jazz in the first round. Denver Nuggets, I'm not saying they're not going to beat them, but it would be stressful. It would be more stressful than having to play a team like the Jazz, who, let's just be real, the way they're constructed, they're not a team that's going to win a championship. I think they're better off trading Rudy Gobert and getting a badass wing to partner up with Donovan Mitchell. That's what they should do. The league's just not built from the inside out anymore, and even Rudy Gobert, he's not going to give you offensive production the way Joel Embiid would, right? So he's not even that kind of center. So it just makes no sense to me. I mean, he's a guy you can really expose in the playoffs and pick and roll, and offensively doesn't even get the ball when he has a large mismatch. And it's funny. It's funny to me that he's been on a team that long with a team that's been pretty good very consistently, and Quinn Snyder's been a very good coach for them. They're just that team that's really good. They're never great. So we'll just see. We'll see. I think the Warriors can be fine in the first round either way. It's just a matter of get healthy. Get healthy, stay healthy, and we'll see what happens. So that's all I have for the show today, guys. I'm going to be back with some more stuff. I have done a lot of networking, though, when I was gone, so that's the good thing about me not having put out an episode. It's not like I was just sitting on my ass doing nothing. So I'm going to try to have some people on as guests. I may even actually be able to do some streams with Jordan Elliott. I just threw it out there to him. He's a writer at Niners Nation, and he's recently started his YouTube channel. It's Jordan Elliott Sports, so you should actually check that out. Subscribe to him. He does live streams, and I was mentioning to him because we were talking about Warriors on a Niners stream, and I mentioned to him when I was in the chat for his stream. I said, put me on the show if you're going to do any Warriors streams. And he said, you know what? He would be down to do it. Like maybe if it's after playoff games or something like that. So you might be able to catch me on there. I'll try to see if I can get some people on here also for the 49ers to talk about Deebo Samuel, talk about the draft. If I can get a guest right before the draft, I think that would be awesome. So I'm going to try to reach out to some people, see if we can get some extra voices so you guys can hear from other points of view other than mine. So I have some of that stuff in the works. This stuff kind of takes time, but I am working on it, and it is progressing every single week. So we're getting there. Thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully we get some updates on Deebo Samuel. We got the draft coming up, and we will be in the NBA playoffs shortly. And also Giants baseball started up, so they almost blew it. They almost blew it today because I'm recording this at the time that they just played. So they almost blew it, but we'll see how their season goes this year. It's the first year without Buster Posey. Feels kind of weird, man. But Joey Bart he was hitting a bomb there. So we'll see how he does this season. But anyways, it was great getting back to this. Can't wait to keep doing this. Can't wait to see what the Warriors do. Catch y'all in the next one.